Arjun had always been known as the man with 1,000 plans. He had a gift of talking endlessly about what he wanted to achieve in life. His grand business ideas, his dream of writing a book, his desire to travel the world, and his determination to become successful. Whenever he sat with his friends, his words flowed like a river and everyone listened. He painted such vivid pictures of his future that people believed he was destined for greatness. But there was one problem. His dreams lived only in his words, never in his actions. He would start his mornings with a burst of motivation, proclaiming to himself, "Today, I will begin my book," or, "This week, I'll work on my business idea." Yet, by the time evening came, he would be back to scrolling through his phone or telling others what he planned to do, without ever taking a single step forward. Deep inside, he convinced himself that talking about his ambitions was enough. It made him feel accomplished, even though nothing had changed in his life. Years passed, and while Arjun kept speaking about his future, many of his friends quietly pursued their own goals. His closest friend, Ravi, had been working diligently day by day without ever making big announcements. At first, nobody even noticed what Ravi was doing. He never bragged about staying up late to learn new skills or the weekends he sacrificed to work on his startup. He rarely even mentioned it. But slowly, his efforts began to show. He built a small online business, which grew steadily. He began investing his earnings wisely, and little by little his life started to transform. One day, at a college reunion, Arjun walked in, ready to share yet another one of his ambitious plans. He had rehearsed it in his head, how he would tell everyone about his idea to launch an app that would revolutionize the market. But when he arrived, he was stunned to see Ravi being congratulated by everyone in the room. Ravi had just been featured in a major newspaper for building one of the fastest-growing businesses in the city. People surrounded him, asking questions, admiring his journey. Arjun felt a sharp sting of jealousy. After all, he had talked about doing things far greater than this. In his mind, he had imagined himself in that very spotlight many times before. But the truth stared at him cruelly. While he had been speaking, Ravi had been doing. That night, Arjun couldn't sleep. He lay awake, replaying the scene in his head, realizing for the first time how empty his words had been. His dreams weren't any less meaningful than Ravi's, but his approach had been completely wrong. Talking had given him short-term satisfaction, but it had also drained the urgency from his goals. Every time he spoke, he felt as if he had already achieved something, and so he never pushed himself to take real action. The next morning, something changed in him. For the first time in years, he didn't call a friend to share his new plan. Instead, he quietly sat down at his desk, opened his notebook, and wrote the first page of the book he had been talking about for years. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but it was real. He didn't post about it on social media, didn't announce it to his circle. He simply worked day after day in silence. Months passed, and though the temptation to talk about his progress often nagged at him, Arjun resisted. He realized that silence gave him strength. Each page he wrote, each chapter he completed, became a small victory that fueled his confidence. Meanwhile, his friends began to notice small changes in him. He no longer spent his time making bold statements. He had grown quieter, calmer, more focused. One evening, Ravi invited him for coffee. With a warm smile, Ravi said, "I've noticed something different about you. You're not talking about your dreams anymore. You're living them." Arjun smiled back, feeling a sense of pride he had never known before. For once, his achievements weren't in his imagination or his words. They were in his hands. 2 years later, Arjun held a printed copy of his first book. It wasn't a bestseller yet, but it was real, tangible proof of his transformation. When he finally announced it, the reaction was completely different from what he had experienced in the past. People were shocked, not because of what he said, but because of what he had done. They admired his discipline, his consistency, his ability to remain silent and let his work speak louder than his words. Arjun learned the greatest lesson of his life. Success doesn't come to those who talk the most, but to those who act the most. Speaking less and doing more works because it shifts energy from illusion to reality. Talking creates comfort, but action creates change. He realized that words are cheap, but actions are priceless. As he continued on his journey, he saw the truth everywhere. The athletes who became champions weren't the ones constantly talking about training. They were the ones sweating on the field when nobody was watching. The entrepreneurs who built empires weren't the ones boasting about their next big ideas at parties. They were the ones burning the midnight oil, testing, failing, learning, and trying again. The writers who touched lives weren't the ones endlessly promising to write. They were the ones filling pages in silence, day after day. Arjun's life began to flourish in ways he never imagined. His book gained recognition, leading to speaking opportunities and new projects. But even then, he never returned to his old habit of excessive talking. He spoke only when necessary and let his work shine. This newfound approach gave him peace, focus, and real confidence. One day he was asked by a young student what the secret to success was. The student expected him to share some complicated strategy, a set of rules, or a formula for success. Instead, Arjun leaned forward, smiled gently, and said, "The secret is simple. Speak less, do more. Every word you save is energy you can invest in your actions, and when you do enough, your actions will speak so loudly that you won't need words at all." The student looked puzzled at first, but as time passed, those words echoed in his heart. He realized the power of silence paired with effort. And like Arjun, he began his journey not with speeches but with small, consistent actions. Arjun's story became a reminder that success is never built on promises or declarations but on sweat, perseverance, and discipline. Life rewards the quiet worker far more than the loud dreamer. And so, his legacy wasn't just his book, his achievements, or his recognition. It was the timeless truth he embodied, that in a world full of noise, the ones who act in silence rise the highest. And thus Arjun's transformation from a man of words to a man of action proved that speaking less and doing more is not just a strategy, but the very foundation of true success.